never can tell like what people like. It's super cool. Go ahead.
Namaste, write the docs. Let's get some energy flowing. Show of hands. How many of you love what you do for a living? Right on. How many of you are glad to be here today? Yeah. How many of you want to be up here speaking and switch with me right now? Okay, well, this talk's journey began, in a sense, a year ago when I spoke here at Write the Docs 2015. I had wanted to be a conference speaker for a long time. I even asked my boss for advice on how I could get into it. She said, talk to other conference speakers, which probably would have been a good idea. Anyway, long story short, I pitched an idea, it was accepted, and the hard work and extreme stress for me began. My goal last year was to convince everyone of one thing. You are a designer. Whether you know it or not, we, as documentarians and as humans, are designers of our own experience. We can choose to have the design be random, or we can do our best to plan it. But we're all living lives based on choices, which is all that design is about. During last year's talk, I introduced a character called Tina the Tech Writer. I talked about the 6 creative aptitudes that Daniel Pink described as essential to the information age, and how technical communicators use them naturally to work with their teams and to reach readers. This talk was a great experience, and I had fun doing it. And afterward, I sat down at my table, and a wonderful Write the Docs attendee came to give me feedback. I love feedback. What she said was, it sounded great, but how do you actually do it? It sounded like something your parents always tell you when you're a kid. You can be anything you want to be. Well, apparently I still wanted to be a conference speaker, so I devised another talk to answer her question, and that's this talk. So I started to write this talk in my mind. I brought back Tina. I started to dream big dreams for Tina. Tina was going to tackle big problems and find awesome solutions and distill it all into a fabulous conference presentation. We'd spice this up a little this time around, though. Let's give Tina a team of tech writers to lead. And let's put them all in the cloud. And instead of stress, there would be peace, love, and understanding. Okay, well, I have an admission to make in case you didn't see this coming. I'm Tina. And this talk is about how I experimented with my whole brain aptitudes, made a bunch of design choices, and survived to tell the tale. About a year ago, just around the time I was preparing for Write the Docs, I started working on a new team at Cisco, a team that would ultimately deliver a cloud collaboration tool called Cisco Spark. It's kind of like Slack, except designed from the ground up with security in mind, and it works with all of Cisco's other collaboration tools. And if you're not familiar with Slack, it's kind of like Facebook for Teams. Anyway, all of these changes required rethinking some things, redesign, if you will. So let me set the stage for you. Cisco Spark, as an app, and a set of associated cloud-based services, was evolving using the process we know as continuous development. We had grand plans to publish our content as data to a knowledge base with tools that were still under development. We had new projects integrating multiple Cisco collaboration product experiences that we needed to describe as though it were one help tool for the user. We had new teams to deal with and new situations, and every one of these things involved its own set of problems and complications. So my boss and I put our heads together and we came up with a rallying cry. More Zen! But what exactly is Zen, and what did it mean to our team? Well, being a technical writer, I of course Googled it. And one concise answer said that Zen is a combination of mind and intuition working together, sort of like mindfulness or consciousness. And a wise guy once reportedly said that no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. One thing was clear to me. My mind and intuition were telling me that we had a problem. What we had was a meta problem, a problem of problems. And all of this stuff happening in the context of continuous development got to feel like such a circus that a Canadian colleague coined a new term for us. We were actually in the state of continuous annoyment, a state of mind filled with tiny problems that all add up to big problems. So with my head in the clouds, starting from a problem state, I started to think of balancing problems with solutions. I then thought of lots of other pairs of things we could balance to reach Zen. But then that wise guy in my brain told me that all I had was different problems on my hands. So back to our rallying cry, more Zen. Looking at too many problems and too many opposing forces at once led me to try to simplify things to get to a Zen state. Zen, at this point, to me, is simplicity. One of the simplest building blocks for a writer is the word. So, simplify all the things. A single simple one-word concept could help me cope with my problems. I actually used this word last year at the start of my talk to convince myself that the shaking in my legs was excitement, not nervousness. And this one word is reframe. So I started with a situation that felt like a problem. When the mind is weak, the situation becomes a problem. I needed to evolve my Zen thinking, maybe change just one word. Now a problem could be thought of as a challenge. Now we were getting somewhere. Now instead of a bunch of problems, I had a bunch of problems with possible solutions. And if I could just find balance for them one by one, I could find solutions. So now it felt like I'd shifted my consciousness to a new state. This is a state of continuous complexity. Now, if you've ever worked on a continuously evolving collaboration tool, doing beta tests to eat your own dog food, all while trying to keep up with documenting it, you are very familiar with this state of mind. Cisco Spark certainly felt like this as we were working toward our big general availability deadline. So at this point, we had to prioritize our problems. My mind now out of the clouds and down to earth, I could follow my intuition on which challenge to tackle first. I once again looked to nature, thinking of an idea like a seed. Plants undergo cycles just like ideas and teams. If they fall in the right spot and are tended, get enough energy from the sun, and rest from the growth in the dark, they thrive. What's the word for the desire to drive this cycle? The desire that drives this cycle? Evolve. Spark was evolving too as ideas got tested and fed or dropped, executed and refined. But each new solution just led to other problems as more and more teams in Cisco started finding and using the documentation. So back to that mantra. Say it with me, more Zen. Thank you. But at this new level of consciousness, now what is Zen? Thinking back on that combination of mind and intuition, it now felt to me like balance. Now my energy was flowing again, and I was starting to have ideas about how to fix individual problems, one at a time, just to move us forward. Things didn't seem quite so overwhelming. I decided to focus on just one challenge at a time, and the time management scheme I'd been trying to develop for a couple of years, which is based on David Allen's Getting Things Done, really fit well with this model. Balance all the things. Well, it wouldn't be Write the Docs without blatant repetition of a geek meme, would it? So when the mind is balanced, the situation becomes a challenge. Well, what if I could use my reframe concept again? If I'm already at the level of challenges, I could reframe to, one more slide, opportunities. Evolution is about opportunities. Evolution is also about continuous development. So we're sort of right back where we started in a cycle. I was developing this talk, our team was developing our processes, and Cisco Spark was developing along with us. So were all of the other teams that we were now negotiating problems with. We're all designing our own ways to cope. So what is Zen in this mental landscape? Zen is frickin' complex. Just quick visual. You know, it's mind plus intuition, and it sounds really simple, but trust me, it's really easy to get out of balance personally when you think too much about this stuff. And everything feels like a state of constant change, but that's evolution, the simple heading toward the complex, energy fueling growth and change. So this is just a quick snapshot of some of our agile processes for help documentation as they've evolved in the last couple of months since Spark went to general availability. You don't have to digest these. This is the product of all of the things that we're doing with various teams within Cisco. And everyone's using varying sets of tools themselves. So everyone's co-evolving in a sense. I didn't even make this slide. I was too busy with my conference presentation. So my boss made this slide. And I was trying to experiment with a more Zen team and all of these other things going on. So we're still coping. We're all evolving together. Sorry, I was so busy evolving this talk that I stuck in last year's memes. So when the mind is strong, the situation now becomes an opportunity. It's all a mind game. So now we've reached a state of Zen. Finally, now what do we want? Well, after all, so this year's talk was supposed to be all about balance. This is how humans reach their highest potential. And you know what? When I reached this state, all I wanted was a little rest. But I noticed that even though it felt like I was going to drop some things, my team was still there catching the things that were important. And there was still plenty of work and challenges and problems waiting for us. I had been too busy to notice, so as soon as I slowed down a little and refocused on my personal priorities, I was able to notice all the work and evolution that my team was doing. Just to reframe the whole cycle, problem, challenge, opportunity, we've all been working a growth cycle, just like seeds that become plants and eventually bloom. You can also reframe this again to work in any sort of life situation. What do I want? I think of a seed of an idea like a conference presentation. I can either nurture it by taking the first step, or I can let it drop. If I choose, I can nurture it and try to find the right conditions to grow with someone else. Maybe they can join me and water the idea, nurture it. Some ideas will not have the proper conditions and they'll die. But if my seed is sprouting and growing, the next step is to start all over and notice. What do I want now? What does my seed need? And if you have a cloud scale solution, go easy on yourself. Dream up a possible solution and add your energy to take this first step to do it. See if you can join up with other energetic particles in the cloud to really get somewhere. And if you come crashing back to Earth, pick yourself up. Decide whether you still want to nurture that idea, despite any obstacle, or whether you're willing to drop it. Look around and see if someone has a better idea. Just notice everything. Sometimes you'll drop an idea and someone else will pick it up. Be grateful for whatever comes. All of it is an opportunity for your growth and for rest and for further growth. So I still didn't really answer the question of how I got to where I am, which is loving my job and seeing opportunities everywhere and seeking rest. The answer is tools. If you want to read a book, David Allen's Getting Things Done is an excellent tool. And of course, I used our tool, Cisco Spark. It doesn't really matter which tools you use your own tools. And of course, for balance, I have my hobbies. I'm a Toastmaster and a hula dancer, and all of it helps as a conference presenter. Point of it, use your tools. You are the designer. You know where you want to go. You can be anything you want to be, and you can have fun doing it. You just have to trust yourself and put your energy into it. Information is just energy flowing from one person to the other. Go with the flow and know where you and your team want to go. Thank you.